Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Monday. It is April the 28th, and we are rolling right now. Welcome back from your weekend. I hope you had a good one. I hope you got a chance to sit and listen to our Sunday sit down. If you didn't do that, give it a chance. I'm seeing that more and more Americans are interested in trying to preserve the dollars that they have. They're worried about their economic future, and they are looking for things like gold and other hard and tangible assets, precious metals, and so on. If you don't know what you're getting into in that market, you have the potential of being scammed. Our sit down with Dale Whitaker is well worth your time, and I think it will also illuminate like how vulnerable the people are. There's a target. If you guys don't realize this, there is a target for conservative listeners to podcasts, to television. If you watch Newsmax, if you watch OAN, if you watch Real America's Voice, if you watch Fox, you're getting bombarded by this conversion to gold IRAs. What are they trying to get? And how can they afford to advertise? If you've listened to us talk to Andy Scheckman, you know that the margins on gold bullion and coin is between like 3 and 5%. That is not a lot of money, folks. That is not an advertising type of thing where you would go out there. The things that you see advertised tend to have a little bit more margin in them. That's because they have a little bit of flexibility in the value and whether you can source them. Maybe there is a supply chain involved. When it comes to things like gold, which has been made for as long as people have been walking around, there's something going on there. And it's very clear to me, it was always clear to me, that there's money being fleeced out of the audience. This is not something that has a negotiable value. It has a fixed value that we can see because it is ubiquitous, right? It's a commodity. That means you can get it from anywhere and it's basically the same. You got to watch that because if somebody's getting 50 or 100% margin built into a coin sale where somebody else is getting 3 to 5%, the victim is you. The people who are getting paid out are the company and the people who receive the advertising dollars and so on. Check that out. 100% worth your time. And I mean that very sincerely. We want to try to save you money. We want to maybe even save your life because we have proven in multiple studies that people who are looking down the barrel of financial insolvency in their golden years don't know what else to do. And so, get ahead of that for yourself. Take care of yourself. No one else is going to look out for you. We're going to do our best, but again, you got to go listen and understand. And you'll understand in the first few seconds why it's worth your time. How about that? All right. We will talk about something that is not a commodity. It is something that is a value proposition. Let's talk about my buddies over at Blackout Coffee, which I started my day getting back into the week with. You can go to blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE and get yourself hooked up. We have been telling you about Blackout Coffee for a couple of months. If you haven't tried it yet, we're going to just break it down right now. It's not just another coffee brand. It's a company that's built on hard work and grit and American values. 6 years ago, they started this company in a garage. And they're running a 64,000 square foot warehouse now, roasting every single bean in-house, packing all of them themselves, employing 30 hardworking Americans. No corporate nonsense, just damn good coffee made by people who actually give a damn. In the Seraphin house, I had to go refill my hopper today on our little mill because I do whole beans like many of you probably do. Crank it up to 8 out of 10. And punch out 2 liters, of which I have some sitting right here on the desk. It's getting me going. Blackout Coffee is not about just a great cup of coffee. It's about supporting the American dream. People who built a company the right way with no shortcuts, no woke nonsense, no weak beans. You believe in hard work and real values and a coffee that's going to get you moving. It's time to make a switch. Go to blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Save yourself 20% on that first order and then figure out what it is you like. Maybe you order a couple different flavors. I'm into the dark roast right now. So mine is pitch black. It's the espresso roast they have, and I'm doing it in 5-pound bags. And I got 2 of them sitting downstairs. Actually, one's sitting here, one's downstairs. Keep the American dream alive. Again, it's blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Don't drink weak coffee. Get started off right. Let's do it. Yeah. All right. I'm still drinking coffee. Let's get this going. Here we go. I want to start with something that's kind of fun. Let's do a little fun story to get us lit up. There we go. Purse snatcher. This a-hole. Illegal immigrant accused of snatching Kristi Noem's Gucci purse identified as a serial criminal from Chile. You don't say. My thesis for today, the thesis and what I'm kind of going to push through here is overwhelmingly, you can tell where the enemy is upset in the media space, in the information war, because it's where they are loudest. And the things they are not upset about, they don't talk about. This is the New York Post. So this is coming from a sort of a semi-right-leaning, I guess for New York standards, a right-leaning group talking about a masked migrant who stole Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem's Gucci bag containing $3,000 in cash. That's kind of a weird story in and of itself. But he's a Chilean national. He's been busted for similar schemes. He used to do it in London. Now he's doing it in Washington, D.C. Why do people move around the globe and commit crimes, particularly snatching things like purses? That's a weird thing to do. Obviously, the guy's got an eye for what a high-end purse looks like and can speculate that the purse has value. What might be in it might be of value. There's obviously about $350,000 worth of makeup in there. If you've seen how Kristi Noem puts her face together. This guy's name was Mario Bustame Lieve or something like that. And he's of Santiago, Chile. He's 49 years old. This is not his first rodeo. And he apparently made off with that luxury handbag while she was at Capital Burger. No, it doesn't cost $3,000 to go out to dinner in Washington, D.C. It's close, but not quite that bad. The cop arrested a second suspect, a buddy of his, an illegal immigrant as well. This one referred to as an illegal migrant because we are still dealing with the New York Post in Miami. And they're holding him on deportation notices while finalizing the charges. They have apparently worked together and committed robbery schemes across the country. My imagination says if he's doing it in London and he's doing it in D.C. and other places in the U.S., he probably did it across the globe. That would be appropriate. What are we saying here? We're saying that some people come here, they completely flout and disregard our immigration rules, and then they do whatever the hell they want because they don't think they are beholden to law. My wife and I had talked about this. I lived in London for about 6 or 8 months when I was in college. I went and did a semester abroad, spent some time over in the UK. Kind of interesting. I got to see about 15 countries or something to that effect. I was flying, for very, very cheap. Back when you could still do that. It was a service called Ryanair. It'd be like a £1 flight, and you just pay the taxes on it. They would just fill up the rest of the flights. Or I don't know how they made money. Maybe they were just moving. Maybe it was a money laundering operation. But we would roll around, see different places. My wife lived in Italy on 2 separate occasions, and neither one of us can imagine flying in, setting up shop in a foreign nation, and then just acting like you could just be there, like go get a job, demand public benefits, like expect that somebody's going to take care of you. All of that stuff is truly crazy. The only reason that you would believe that could happen in the United States, the only reason, is because you have this suicidal empathy, this sense of entitlement that comes from Americans feeling bad about the success of this nation. People who didn't build that success, by the way. Isn't that the famous Barack Obama line? You didn't build it. Somebody else built the road. Somebody else built the infrastructure, right? The concept that your country is so successful that now you owe everybody else for your success. I think on an individual basis, that makes sense. If you are inherently wealthy and you maybe inherited your wealth and you're just a steward of it, it would be a good thing to be a philanthropist. It'd be a good thing to go out and give to others and take care of others. I see a lot of folks that make money. They go one of 2 routes. If you get to a point where you're financially healthy, where you are safe, maybe you go out there and you find your neighbors who are less fortunate. That's a very Christian thing to do. It's an American value to lift others up and give them opportunity. The other alternative is that you look at everybody as trying to get you what you have, and you start hoarding it jealously. You protect it. You start to kick down anybody else like crabs in a bucket. So there's 2 ways you can approach that. The way that a nation should do it is that it should look out for its citizens, and if its citizens have individual altruism, then they will demonstrate it. Great example. You create a safe nation like the United States. You create an opportunity for religious freedom like the United States. You allow people to even put away money into nonprofits and into charitable contributions and have a tax deferment because of that, like the United States. And then those people who have taken that nonprofit money, who have created these organizations, maybe they say, you know what, we're looking out there and we see misfortune in fill in the blank place. Maybe we have an ethnic root there. Maybe we have a series of Americans who originated in Colombia, in our parish, in our congregation, in our flock. So we're going to go out there and we're going to do a mission to Colombia. We're going to take our money and we're going to go help them out. Maybe it's in Nigeria, so you do the same thing in Nigeria. Maybe it is in China and you want to go spread the word in China. So be it. Whatever that word is, whether you're Christian, whether you're Hindu, whether you're Muslim. By the way, all those people suing right now, right, in Maryland, trying to get their rights to be able to raise their children the way they want. Why is that? Because the government shouldn't come in and do the thing where it says the government's right to speech, the government's right to go out there and pontificate about what is and what is not virtuous. That doesn't exist. That's not in our Constitution. It's problematic. So people who disregard the law, who don't care about what your nation's laws are, they tend to operate in a very specific way. And the people who cover that story are also a certain type of person. Again, I want to go back into this meta coverage. If you see that the left-wing media, and I've got a little smattering, let me look at here. I got New York Post, I got ABC, I've got a local news ABC story, I've got something from Real Clear Investigations, which is kind of a cover story talking about some of the information op that's going on. You know, that it takes a long time. By the way, we saw arrests of 2 judges and 200 illegals at a nightclub and a couple of other things that we're going to cover as far as topics go today. I thought these things take time. I thought it takes 6 months to 8 months to get a real locked up airtight case. That's why we have to do that. It turns out it doesn't actually. Under Title 8, there's turn and burn. There's always been a thing in law enforcement. Long-term investigations and transactional business. You have to always have enough transactional business that the long-term investigations are fed and that people are willing to, have something to work on daily, but they have something they can wait for. Long-term investigations take the form of subpoenas and legal process where you're going to go through and do exploits of social media. You're going to do exploits of financial records, of contact lists, and you're going to try to find through surveillance and through known associates, you're going to figure out a bigger criminal web, whatever that looks like. Okay, that's the Epstein type case. Granted, they've had a really long time on that. But imagine that being a long-term. Transactional business is when you go like, hey, those people robbed a bank. We found out that they robbed a bank. These fingerprints were on file. This was a person who previously robbed a bank. This is recidivism at work. We are going to go out there and nab that person. And by the way, here's where he's known to hole up. And this is the fence that he went to previously. And this is the place where he used to stash his money. Boom, wham, bam, you wrap him up. In fact, to the point where the FBI at this point doesn't even consider bank robberies to be worth their time. They'll have a bank robbery coordinator, one person maybe, in a massive field office because they just want the local cops to do it. They don't even want to go after that federal crime. So the thing that you think that your federal law enforcement is doing, they're not, right? But when we're looking at this information op, again, there's some on the right and there's some on the left. It's very obvious to me. The left is now screaming about immigration. And who are the lefties that are doing so? Apparently, they had this thing called the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Every year, I hear about it again for the first time because it just dumps out of my brain. It's not important to me. They call it Nerd Prom. You guys want to know who the people are that are feeding your neighbors that don't agree with you politically, who are going to feed them information? It's people like NBC's Welker, Kristen Welker, I think is her name. Here she is talking, introducing people that I've never heard of, and I'm almost positive none of you have either, at the Nerd Prom. This is the stuff that we generally don't cover. It's worth knowing how much this group fawns on itself. There's a massive danger in this country of mutual aberration societies. It doesn't matter whether you're talking about the people who 100% back the blue, even when there's great examples because of COVID of law enforcement officers violating their oath from the state, the federal, and the local level. This can happen at any level. If you give people a 100% pass that whatever they do is amazing all the time, and I stand with this person, regardless of the individual action that person makes, you're a crazy person. You're going to set yourself up for awful losses. This is the mainstream media covered by C-SPAN basically fawning all over itself because they do not have the ability to do self-critical analysis where they look back in and go, hey, where are we good? Where are we bad? Or should we just give each other awards for ourselves? This is a mutual admiration society dinner. We might as well know that it's out there. It is in the culture. Again, this is the sort of circle jerk that exists in Washington, D.C. and the White House press, the correspondence dinner where these people celebrate themselves, including giving awards to people who previously led their organizations, which is also kind of silly.
The Aldo Beckman Award for Overall Excellence is named for a past president of the association, the late Chicago Tribune Washington correspondent, Aldo Beckman. The award was established in 1981 to recognize a correspondent who personifies the journalistic excellence and personal qualities of Aldo Beckman: impartiality, integrity, and a deep knowledge of the presidency. The award also includes a prize of $2,500. This year's award goes to Alex Thompson of Axios.
And I won't go any further, but there's a $2,500 award given to a reporter from Axios that tells you a lot about who they celebrate and what they're willing to celebrate. It's very silly to me. Again, you can see where they're most upset. They are most upset about illegal immigration enforcement going on properly right now. That's who that club is upset about. That's what the questions of the president fawn around, they circle around. And to the credit of the Trump administration, which does some things well and some things poorly, currently, that was the same last time, by the way. I'm happy about the fact that they've actually honed in on this thing that many people voted based on. They said, you have sold out my nation, Democrats. You have given away our national sovereignty and our wealth. You have basically said, you have shamed us into it. So the fact that there are actions taking place and crying about it, it's good. It's a solid good. Here's Donald Trump reintroducing the CBP Home app, a rebranding of the One app. If this is not a perfect little microcosm of the difference between the last 4 years, I've got something coming up later on this week. I want to do a little bit more digging on it. But the way that the press covered inflation under Biden versus Trump, there was a CNN headline today that I'm holding on to, and it was like, markets in turmoil, chaos, and so on. And it's like, okay, well, it's been about 100 days. By November of 2021, they were starting to realize that Joe Biden may screw up the economy. And for 3 years, they basically ran cover saying, well, it's happening, but here's an angle to try to make it look better. Again, these people are liars. Here's Donald Trump kind of laying out in Donald Trump fashion. He's pitching an app, and the app is self-deport. It actually is not a bad plan. And maybe some people use it, or maybe they don't. But at the very least, they can say, look, we gave them the option. How many times do people claim, you didn't give them any other chance? Give him the easy way, give him the hard way. I remember sitting over a guy who was blacked out on K2 or Spice or Salvia or whatever they were calling it at the time in the emergency room. This goes back to probably like 2013. And there was this, and he had spit on a female paramedic, and he had tried to fight our doctors. He spit in the eye of one of our physicians, who was a really cool guy, who just kind of like went back and wiped his eyes out. And so this cop gets in his face, and the cop is the lieutenant who's the supervisor for the entire, shift, whatever it was. But the sergeant was already out of it, and you had this lieutenant coming in, and he's got a mustache. He's about 6'5", and he's leaning over the face of this gangbanger homie who had Mexican mafia tattoos. Yeah, scumbags do scumbag things. And he's leaning over this guy, and we're about to catheterize him to get a sample of urine. And the lieutenant looked the guy in the face upside down. So imagine you're laying on a bed, strapped down by like 6 dudes, and you're fighting vigorously because you're on drugs and you're an a-hole. And this lieutenant looks down and he goes, hey man, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. And I often love the hard way. And I believed him. I think he loved the hard way. We ended up catheterizing him against his will, taking the urine sample under what's called implied consent and finding out that he was all drugged up, which is why he was a jerk. Donald Trump gives these people the easy way or the hard way. I'm not saying he loves the hard way, but I do get the feeling that Tom Homan is kind of like that mustachioed lieutenant that I saw that one time. I think he does love the hard way when it comes to taking this stuff down. I'll give you some examples of that too. First, let's hear Donald Trump pitching the CBP Home app, coming to a phone near you, we hope.
People in our country illegally can self-deport the easy way, or they can get deported the hard way, and that's not pleasant. The Biden administration exploited the CBP One app to allow more than 1 million aliens to illegally enter the United States. Now my administration is launching the CBP Home app to give people in our country illegally an easy way to leave now and self-deport voluntarily. If they do, they could potentially have the opportunity to return legally at some point in the future. But if they do not avail themselves of this opportunity, then they will be found, they will be deported, and they will never be admitted again to the United States, ever again. You're never coming in. Using the CBP Home app to leave the United States voluntarily is the safest option for illegal aliens, our law enforcement. It also saves the U.S. taxpayer dollars and valuable CBP and ICE resources. And all of those resources are necessary to focus on dangerous criminal aliens, and that's what we're focused on. The CBP Home app is now available free across all mobile app stores, and I encourage those who have violated our laws to use this option today. Do it right and come back into our country. Do it wrong and you'll never be back again.
Yeah, it's a pretty good little spot, right? I think it gets the idea out there. There are rules in this country. There are laws. I was told that nobody is above the law, that nobody can just run amok and do whatever the heck it is they want. And yet, yeah, kind of they are doing that, aren't they? Some people really don't care about the law, not even a little bit. Huh. Okay, so let's get into some of those people. How about these folks? 200 people detained, including members of the military. Suddenly, those on the left really, really care about the military. They're very upset because ICE and DEA and FBI and some others, federal agents, went in and snatched up a bunch of people and detained them. An investigative detention, which is legally permitted when you have probable cause to believe that something is going on, that there is criminal activity afoot and you are doing an investigative stop. You can be inconvenienced under our laws. That's the way that it works. Many of you have been inconvenienced under the probable cause to believe that you had somehow violated a speeding code, or maybe that you had changed lanes inappropriately, or maybe somebody thought that you had a signal that was out, or whatever else, whatever justification was used for a stop. You have been inconvenienced and detained. And then some things happen afterwards. There's an investigation, and they decide whether or not they're going to consider putting you into custody, giving you a citation, or not. 200 people were detained. This is ABC News. At a nightclub. It was an unlicensed nightclub. That's the beginning of it, which means that they were probably in violation of city code, having lived next door to an unlicensed nightclub before that was run by a bunch of prison gang members. It turns out that people who ignore small laws also tend to ignore bigger laws. So the DEA said it detained more than 200 people, including members of the military, at this unlicensed underground nightclub. If you've seen the videos, I'm not going to play it. There's not much in value there as far as watching it or listening to it, but it's just a bunch of people spilling out of a nightclub, all dressed up to party. They said that they detained active duty members of the military, probably in an off-limit zone. If you guys have been in the military, you know that there are almost always nightclubs. There are areas of town. There are strip malls and so on where nefarious actions happen and where things constantly go awry for members of the service. And so first sergeants and commanders get together and decide, this is not good for troop morale or welfare, or the ability to prosecute the mission. We don't need our buddies that are working for us on a Monday morning wrapped up on Saturday night in some prostitution sting. So maybe we'll just ban this thing. And that can be punishable by non-judicial punishment, or they can put you in the brig or whatever else they have. You can be punished by having some off-limit zones. My buddy Josh and I, when I was staying at Fort Bragg for a couple of weeks or a couple of months for training, we found the little Saigon area outside in Vietnam. If you guys have ever been to Fayetteville, sometimes they call it Vietnam. A lot of people that are Vietnamese descent have gone to some little area there. There was all these prostitutes, and so we drove through this strip mall that was supposed to be, there was a place called Sharky's that I know is probably still off limits. I can't remember what the hell it was. I know we drove by that. We did a little tour of all the places to find out what was off limits when we were in Fort Bragg. And as we drove through this one little strip mall, it was completely vacant. It was like nothing. Looked like a ghost town or a zombie apocalypse. Very weird. And when you drove in there, which we did, in broad daylight, there was nobody out there. It was hot. It was like a Sunday afternoon or something like that. We go cruising into this parking lot, looking around going why would they make this vacant strip mall off limits? All of a sudden, all these Vietnamese prostitutes come flying out of the closed doors, and they all kind of approach the vehicle. And he was like, oh, that's what's going on here. It's just a spot where all the hookers hang out. This is a known thing. If you go hang out there, you're going to get rolled up. And so if you're in the military, getting detained because you're hanging out with a bunch of criminals, that is a normal thing if you're an enlisted person. You can trust my experience on that. You can trust the people in the chat who know enlisted people find trouble. That's what Joe does. That's what our favorite members of the chair force, what the folks in the Coast Guard do. There's a story about that in a minute here. It doesn't matter what branch of service you're in. If you are enlisted, you will find trouble, or your buddies will, and you'll be bailing them out. Just depends on what kind of troop you are. At some point in time, you're going to be on the wrong side of things, because that's who enlists. People who are willing to take some risks, who are looking for some adventure. Maybe they're looking for a Vietnamese prostitute. What the hell do I know? Officials said that among those detained were active duty military members. DEA Special Agent in Charge Jonathan Poland said that they were alleged members of gangs, including TDA and MS-13, that were present at the venue. It happened at 3:45 a.m. on Sunday, so Saturday night going into Sunday, a multi-agency enforcement operation. Remember, these things take time, and yet they didn't take that much time at all. that got done almost immediately, right then and there. And why is that? Well, turns out it's because when the federal government wants to move quickly, it can, just like we saw on January 6th. And when it doesn't want to move quickly, it doesn't. Kind of like what we're seeing for some of the long-term investigations that should be out there. Some of those should take time, but I'll tell you what shouldn't take time: personnel changes within these agencies, so you don't get a bunch of people that conscientiously opt out from doing a raid like that. If you're looking on the screen, you're seeing ERO, that's ICE, DEA, you know what that is, FBI. There's another group that says police. They might even be ATF folks there. They have a multi-agency raid going on because you're going to have multiple violations. It bothers me. It bothers me that people are trying to make messaging happen that's like trying to protect a group of people that are not moving fast enough in a place where it needs to. More on that maybe in a minute. Before we do, speaking of things that should be like one of those time is of the essence situations, if you guys want to go and make sure that you are protected against any kind of chaos that could come our way in this country, and I do think it is probably heading our way in the next 24 months, something to that effect will go wrong, probably locally, preparelikekyle.com. When you guys see grocery shelves, do they go, if they go empty tomorrow, are you going to be ready? Are you going to be prepared? Our family has My Patriot Supply as the stuff stuffed in our closet. We have an entire closet full of them. The 90-day food kit, which you're seeing on sale right now. It's the 3-month emergency food kit. We keep them on hand. I think I bought it for the exact same deal here. It's $200 off at this point. They have the best, basically, calorie per dollar ratio. That sold it for me. Maybe that sells it for you too. They also have over 75,000 5-star reviews. They've helped millions of Americans prepare for the worst. And the upside is it'll last for up to 25 years. All right. There's a huge discount right now. The last time I bought it was months and months ago. You guys probably heard me say it if you listened to the podcast for a while. They almost never offer these deals. They come up every once in a while. When they do, this is the time to jump on them. Again, you want to build the ark before the rains come. It gives you 2,000 calories per day per person. It's a 3-month food kit. Lasts for up to 25 years. It ships free, and you can get delivery in as little as 2 days. Nobody wants to like pull the trigger on this thing and then not have it in their house. You want to see it show up very, very quickly afterwards. They've got multiple warehouses across the United States to make sure that can happen. All right. We can't control what's going on in the world. We can control how prepared we are. Save $200 off by going to preparelikekyle.com. It's the first thing you'll see. It's the first position, preparelikekyle.com. Link is always in the show description. All right, we're going to carry on with a couple other little fun stories. Again, ICE raids are not the only thing that we're seeing out there that's fun. I'm seeing local, specifically Democrat-controlled areas that are picking up the Garland administration baton. One of the things that blew my mind was remembering when Merrick Garland said that he was going to consider race and people's socioeconomic background on whether or not they were going to prosecute cases. You're seeing people on social media saying, hey, listen, we really need to prioritize. I made something that was a semi-controversial post yesterday because I went to church and I realized we have a Spanish-speaking priest. There's a Spanish-speaking priest at almost every church I've been to. But here's something truly crazy for you, all right? I lived in Las Cruces, New Mexico. We're going to cover a story from Las Cruces in a minute because they arrested a judge there, a magistrate judge, who was involved in helping illegal aliens avoid detection, including, I think, a TDA member. When I was in Las Cruces, we had, I want to say 4 priests, 3 of whom were native English speakers. And now I'm in a church that is in Texas, so not nearly as Hispanic focused. And we have 2 priests, one of whom speaks English as a first language, one of whom speaks Spanish and English almost not at all. When he speaks, I don't know what hell he's saying. I just tune out. He says, of course, I've tracked him using the expression, we're going to do this, of course. Because of this, of course, I've tracked that like 5 times in a 60-second period. That's what I do. I just listen to him say that. And then I've heard him do it in Spanish because he's done mixed homilies where he's speaking and preaching in both English and Spanish. And he says, por supuesto, whatever the hell it is. Of course. He literally is a moron in both languages, as far as I can tell. Very disappointing. Why do we have Spanish language masses in America? You would never go to Germany and find a Catholic church where they have an English mass necessarily, I don't think. Let someone know. If you guys have ever lived in Germany, if that's a thing in the main population, out in the main part of the country, you wouldn't go and find an American or an English mass in Italy. You wouldn't find one speaking English in France. In the United States, we make everything dual language. Do you remember, even in my early memory as being in high school, they started introducing 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. How about anywhere that you show up where there's going to be a concentrated group of people that do not speak English? They're not from here. That's just my assumption. So rather than go out there and say, well, we're going to only find gang members, we're going to only find people that violated certain types of laws, grab all of them right now. We're in the wholesale business at this moment. That's my take. And the reason why is because I don't actually want to discriminate based on race. I want to say if you violated the law in any way, shape, or form, I don't care if it was high or low, we're not going to do this. The opportunity cost is let's get all of them. And then we can start being more discriminatory when we start having less and less. Right now, the problem is huge. You basically can swing a dead cat and hit as many as you want. There are illegal aliens in every segment of our population. So let's go for it. This was truly interesting to me, though. This is a woman who is a attorney, or she's the county attorney. She's like the, what do you call those people? The district attorney in Hennepin County, that's in Minnesota, and she has taken on, she kind of looks like Merrick Garland too, doesn't she? She's taken on the mantle of we are not going to prosecute people based on their race, which I'm pretty sure is unconstitutional just on its face. But I heard this little clip run out there and I went like, what on earth are we doing? And then I remembered this was one of the DOJ whistleblower complaints that we brought forward. Merrick Garland slowly changed that executive authority. This was under Biden, saying that we are not going to prosecute certain people based on their race, that they were going to take that into account when they considered prosecutorial discretion, which is whether or not we actually move forward with prosecution. That's an executive function. In theory, they actually have that ability. But listening to this woman explain it again, it's funny. Sometimes things start at the local level and they make it up to a federal statute. More often than not, federal things are tried and then states and local governments that are hard leftists, when they're losing, go to this sort of movement. So this is a lady explaining it. I'm going to kind of get into it just a little bit. Let's listen to the local news talk about it because they even realize, and I'm sure they probably lean a little left. This is in Minnesota going, can we really do that?
On Monday, prosecutors in Hennepin County are being asked to enact a very controversial policy. They will be required to consider race when offering plea deals. It's part of a new policy from Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Lou Raguse leads off our coverage tonight. Lou?
Julie, this new policy was sent to me by sources within the Hennepin County Attorney's Office concerned that the policy could be unconstitutional if they start taking race-based government actions in their roles as prosecutors.
This is a new negotiation policy set to go in effect Monday in Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty's office. In it, Moriarty lays out several considerations, including race, that our prosecutors should take when extending plea deal offers to defendants. The policy says proposed resolutions should consider the person charged as a whole person, including their racial identity and age. While those factors should not be controlling, they should be part of the overall analysis. Prosecutors should be identifying and addressing racial disparities at decision points as appropriate.
It's so crazy for me to think that in a justice is blind society, one of the most incredible places that could be created, because we tried to take all of the bias out of our system. That's the goal. The goal is to take bias out of the system and to have checks and balances. The judges are not supposed to look at certain things. The prosecutors are separated. Remember, your prosecutors are sort of like a leash on the attack dog that is the law enforcement entity. The law enforcement is supposed to go out there and try to, find out all the things and push right up to the level of what is legally and constitutionally allowed. And then the attorneys that are going to be doing the prosecution go like, whoa, we got to pull you back, guys, a little bit. The funny thing about DOJ is that they are more than willing to push the limits on certain things. This is on the federal level, not on this local level. They're more than willing to push the thing on certain levels, like they're willing to go after Christians who are protesting outside of an abortion clinic. But you'll find that they have very, very strong constraints when it comes to the First Amendment civil liberties or the manpower restrictions that it would take to find members of Jane's Revenge. These are the people that were going after crisis pregnancy centers and burning churches and stuff like that during the Summer of Love. And I imagine we might have another version of that under this second version of Trump as well. Worth remembering. They are weighing in on it. And they're weighing in on it in writing, in policy, which sounds very droll. It sounds very not sexy. And at the same time, the DOJ did this under Merrick Garland. We saw this happen. To me, that's pretty wild. And you wonder why that would be. Why would certain groups be prioritized? Why would certain groups not? That discriminatory attitude is one of the things that I made a protected disclosure about. It's one of the reasons why I don't work for the FBI. What I said is I will not take nasal swabs that test for COVID that specifically target Christians. You guys may not know that about one of the disclosures I made. The second time, my first religious one was that I'm not going to do something that I thought was against my pro-life beliefs. The second one was very upset about the idea that they were going to target Christians specifically about swabbing noses when anybody could get the virus. We knew this by the time this happened. This was in late 2021 under the Biden administration. I wasn't willing to discriminate against myself. If you're willing to engage in these policies, you're willing to discriminate. And I do think that is truly evil. It's interesting that we've seen an uptick, at least in the video coverage, of people that are worshiping satanic beliefs, whatever the hell that looks like. Satanic demonstrations are happening in places like what? Kansas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, like Midwest and upper Midwest areas. Why? Why would that be taking root? I saw this video. I can't validate that this is true, but I'm pretty sure it is. It looks legit. And I know that these people did demonstrations out there. This is also in Minnesota. Again, Hennepin County, that's Minneapolis area, where you have people, that female who looks a lot like Merrick Garland. We won't speculate on what kind of preferences she has in her life, but she kind of looks like a certain way. She has a certain kind of look. And if you look like Merrick Garland, you know what that looks like. Short hair, gray, kind of talk like you're whining. Why are they putting up plaques to Tim Walz, who says, not only, like, this is a Christian nation, whether you guys like it or not. Like the founders, the people who came here, the original request for liberty, it was Christian in nature. It was specific versions of Christianity. And yeah, there are some minority religions that are protected. They're supposed to be. I'm not 100% sure how I feel about people putting up banners to Satan. And I'm not exaggerating here. That's what you're going to see on the screen. I don't think that makes any sense. Not in this nation.
Media is this plaque in honor of our governor, Tim Walz. And it is from people that are supportive of his efforts. And there it is.
Right there.
Right here in the East Hall, lower level. And it reads, the Democratic Coalition of Satan Worshippers thanks Governor Tim Walz for not standing in the way of spreading Satanism in the state capitol building. Satan has a special place for you. And that's what it says.
That almost feels like trolling. Satan has a special place for you. I can't tell if these people are trolls. I honestly can't. And that is a very impermanent looking plaque. I mean, it's nicely made. It's in wood, but it's sitting on kind of like a temporary table there. Is that going to get removed at some point? Is that some sort of a First Amendment stand? Maybe. But do we not get to decide what's good and what's bad in this country? I thought we did. You know, we're supposed to tolerate all things, but that doesn't mean you have to celebrate all things. Anyway, if that's what they want to hitch their wagons up to, let's go for it. Again, the best part for me is the things that they do focus in on, the amount of hypocrisy that pops up, which is very easy to see. And they're telling you where they're dangerous. If they want to sit out there, celebrate Satan and illegal aliens, I don't know that the Democrat Party is going to be able to be. You can't even get regular people to do it. Let me give you a quick example. I went to a protest before the Dobbs decision came out. And so there were a bunch of these Roe v. Wade celebrators. There were a bunch of women that were celebrating and shouting their abortions. And they're sitting there and they've got like not a person yet written on their pregnant belly. Really disgusting stuff. And there was a woman that was standing there and she looked a certain way. You can just imagine. She's a little bit portly. She's a little bit gross. She's not a nice person. She's not a happy person. She looked miserable. And at some point in time, in order to own the Christians who were out there quietly praying, she started screaming the words, quote, "Hail Satan," over and over again. And everybody dropped off. Everyone went like, no, that's not what we're about here. I don't think so. Even that is too far for like regular people that engage in some satanic practices. Not by name, but by deed. So the lady that says, "My baby is not a human being," written on her womb while she's sitting there and she's bearing a child that is damn near ready to come out. You're not going to hear that person scream out the "Hail Satan." That actually stops everybody cold in their tracks. And it kind of like made everything kind of dissipate. It actually was a de-escalator. It's the same vibe as this lady here who's screaming and appealing to authority. You'll notice this. This woman, the women, we call them Karens now for some reason, which is really sad because there's probably some lovely people named Karen, maybe even in our audience. There's some lovely people named Karen who have now had to adopt this Karen thing. Karen does sound like a white lady, and maybe that's what this lady's name is. She's screaming at a town hall in Georgia, and she's associating with virtues that are not her own. She's screaming and she wants to be associated with like free speech, right? That's what the lady outside of the Supreme Court was doing. Free speech, activism. You must tolerate all, ugly opinions, even if you don't agree with them. That's the old, I'll celebrate, your ability to speak, even if I don't agree with what you have to say kind of thing. I'll defend your ability to go out there and share your position and perspective. This woman's at a senator, what is his name? Joel Ossoff. He's a senator out of Georgia. She's up there yelling, and notice where her appeal to authority goes. I'm a victim because my child is autistic. My family members do things that are virtuous by working in healthcare, which is also very lucrative, it turns out. My father was in the military. So whenever somebody says I'm a military something family, that's not the flex you think it is. This is the suicidal empathy that keeps popping up. These women that are feeling impotent rage. I'll let them do this all day long. This is good coverage, I think, for Republicans. Allow this lady, because this is not converting any votes. But again, listen to where they're screaming. Satan always screams loudest where he's losing.
So you keep saying that there isn't a magic button.
Yeah.
And I recognize that you're a senator and not in the House. And everything that Trump is doing is leading us down an authoritative rule. Why are there no calls for impeachment? This is unacceptable. I will not live in an authoritative country, and neither will any of these people. You can do more. Think outside the box. He needs to be impeached. I will not live like this. My dad is retired full-bird Army colonel. My parents are healthcare. I have a son with autism. I have kids that attend Title I school. Do you think that there's nothing can be done? No. Do something more. I like you, and I will vote for you if you are brave and you do what we need. We need him impeached. We need him removed.
Thank you, ma'am.
We need him impeached. We need him removed. Ex-New Mexico judge and wife were arrested, allegedly harboring an illegal Tren de Aragua member. Lest you think that this ex-judge was like some ex-judge who wasn't currently sitting in that seat. New Mexico judge resigned after alleged gang member arrested on his property. The story is dated April 23rd, 2025. That's 5 days ago as of this morning. So he's just recently an ex-judge. He was a current sitting magistrate judge in Doña Ana County, where I used to be a resident. You can do something. You can go arrest people that break the law. In theory, this lady is talking about rule of law and checks and balances and the fact that somebody who commits high crimes and misdemeanors should not be maintaining that position. You must impeach Trump is their call. It's impotent because, what has he done except enforce the actual law? So I want to show you a couple things. I'm going to give you a Tom Homan clip in a minute explaining why he thinks the Biden administration did things the way they did. I haven't heard it articulated quite this way. I think we all know it, but it's nice to hear somebody in the administration say it. But more importantly, what I want to hear is people, that same lady actually has a show every single night on MSNBC. And that same lady is called Rachel Maddow. She is the personification of that Karen-type woman screaming, impeach, impeach. I've got some fun stuff. This is Rachel Maddow talking about they've gone too far. They're arresting judges. She's not talking about the judge in Doña Ana, by the way, talking about the judge that was in Wisconsin because 2 judges were arrested for harboring illegals. And what does that tell us about our judiciary at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level? We know where these people's sympathies lies. They lie in the same place that Rachel Maddow does. They were educated oftentimes in the same schools. Here she is talking about it's too far. Then I'm going to give you the best, which is Rachel Maddow versus Rachel Maddow. I'll give you mainstream media versus mainstream media, because depending on where they fall on the issue, their coverage varies widely. It is one of the things that we love observing over here at this program, and what I'll always try to give you guys an expose on if possible. Here she is talking about it's gone too far. We knew it was going to be bad, but it's far worse than we ever imagined.
It's not like we didn't know it was going to be terrible, and it is terrible. He really did have a judge arrested today. And we will have more on that in a moment. But that wasn't all. I mean, today we learned that Trump is killing off the federal funding for Narcan. Narcan, the anti-overdose miracle that has literally saved hundreds of millions of American lives in the last few years. There are hundreds of thousands of Americans who are alive today who would not be alive without Narcan. It is a miracle that saves people from overdose. And Trump, in his first term.
Do you think she knows what that miracle Narcan is? That it's an opiate antagonist, that it knocks off the ability of things like fentanyl, which is being smuggled in by illegal gangs and cartels into this country and killing people because it is too strong? Do you know that the Narcan that the cops carry is not necessarily supposed to be for, I mean, that's what it's used for now, but it wasn't originally set up so that it could save the life of people who are willfully and intentionally taking a drug that they have the potential of dying on. People have been dying from heroin overdoses since like before I was born. It's a common thing. And when you play with more and more aggressive synthetics in the opiate game, you're more likely to deal with something that is fatal. You're toying with your own life. That's your choice. The Narcan is in case a cop is exposed to it or a paramedic is dealt with it. When you had it out there for our first responders, who are not FBI agents, by the way, although they might be DEA, they might be in a place where DEA guys might want it. You might want to have ICE guys have it because these people tend to have it. Narcan is fantastic. It gives people an opportunity to knock off that opiate that is basically clogging and stopping people. Opiates are a respiratory depressant. They cause you to stop breathing and therefore you die. You can also save them without Narcan, by the way. I don't want to blow anybody's minds here, but I may or may not have been a paramedic for a decade. You can actually save people's lives by just artificially breathing for them. You can carry a BVM. It can work 1,000,000 times over. It's cheaper than Narcan, it turns out, just getting a switchable mask. They have disposable BVMs as well. They take up a little bit more space, but not much. But yeah, you can breathe for somebody as long as you want until you get them into an ambulance. The person who gave them the drug or helped them shoot up could do it too. There's a lot of ways that you could do it. Narcan is not the only solution to that problem. So that's why Trump's so bad. I want to give you Rachel Maddow versus Rachel Maddow, though, because isn't it fun? She's very, very upset. This is the same lady who was cheering on the presentation and the prosecution of Donald Trump. They loved the way that it was marched out. They were going to go after Donald Trump. Nobody is above the law. Remember, nobody's above the law right up until our people are getting caught up in the law. And then we suddenly have a problem. This is Maddow versus Maddow versus Maddow, 2023, 2024, and then today. So Biden, Trump.
Nobody's above the law. We only have one system of law for everyone. Nothing about being an elected official gives you a license to commit crimes or a license to get away with it if you do. Why step up politically and defend a judge or a prosecutor? That's supposed to be a non-political part of our system. It's not like we didn't know it was going to be terrible. And it is terrible. He really did have a judge arrested today. Arresting a judge today. Are you kidding me?
I mean, are you kidding me? A judge who was harboring a known gang member? In the House, you're seeing it on the screen there. Again, who resigned knowing what was coming. The guy came into the United States illegally under Biden around Eagle Pass without inspection or authorization. They uncovered evidence that links him to the gang, including gang-related clothing, tattoos, voicemails, text messages. In other words, this guy got caught up in one of those long-term investigations called Enterprise investigations that have been going on since the Biden administration, but maybe they didn't have the ability to go after it. He was released December 18th, 2023, pending a removal proceeding due to overcrowding at a Border Patrol facility. Why were all these people released? I'm going to give you some more mainstream media versus mainstream media. First, Tom Homan explaining why were these people released into custody or out of custody and into the United States? Why aren't they just deported? He's explaining why. And it's been a nefarious plot to fill people in, bring them into this country, and the numbers do not lie about why they're here.
And as far as releasing so many people, you know why the Biden administration released millions of people in the United States? No one ever talks about it. I'll talk about it. Why did they release people into the interior of the United States and put them, rather than put them into an ice bed? Why not put them in an empty ice bed at $127 a night rather than in a hotel room at $500 a night? They did it on purpose, because when you put them in an ice detention bed, they get a hearing in 35 days. Court records show 9 out of 10 people claim asylum, get order removal, they're gone. But if you release them and put them in a hotel room at $500 a night, their hearings could be 5, 7, 9 years if you pull out all appeals. And what are they hoping for then? That another Democrat administration is in power. They can award an amnesty to millions. This is about selling this country off for future political power.
It's really straightforward. It's really simple. Folks, if you're watching right now and you're watching over on Rumble, will you go ahead and give me a like on the little thumbs up button over there? Same thing for you on YouTube. I've seen more and more of you out there. If you guys want to watch the show in 4K, that's the only place to go. And if you don't see it on Rumble, or if you're having a hard time finding it, people are telling me YouTube makes it really easy. For the once, it's pretty cool. It's youtube.com/@KyleSeraphin. If you guys want to join us on Locals, you can support the program financially, and we do appreciate that. That's pretty cool. It keeps us independent. We're going to be that way either way, but if you want to be in, it's KyleSeraphin.com. And then lastly, if you want to share the show to somebody on Spotify, they can watch audio or video, and you can do it with KyleSeraphinShow.com. I appreciate you guys pushing that out and making sure other people have an access to what we're doing over here, which I think is kind of interesting. It's been interesting for me, for sure. I got a fun thing. Some of you did not know about this, that Seamus and this group called Freedom Tunes. This is a cartoon parody. It leans pretty conservative, but I think it's very honest. I'm going to give you more mainstream media versus mainstream media, but let's go back to that kind of that circle jerk of the Washington press corps. This is old-fashioned newsmen. If you guys have never seen this Freedom Tunes before, this is a great example of what we're seeing right now. The people who are upset, and they run headlines. And I'm going to end with a story about children being deported, U.S. citizen children. Once you understand the context of it, technically, you might have a different opinion based on what the as opposed to what the NBC sort of headline looks like. This is Freedom Tunes. If you've never seen them before, I've known of them beforehand. I've sat with Seamus on the Tim Pool show before, on the IRL, and this is a great little clip, so share it around if you like.
Extra, extra! Trump deported a U.S. citizen who didn't even break the law!
No way! Really?
Yeah. Okay, but did that really happen?
Well, technically. He was an undocumented U.S. citizen, and he did break the law, but only in the sense that arson is still illegal. Technically.
Well, I'm already feeling emotions, so none of those distinctions matter.
What? The story was a complete lie. A lie? Because of some technicality? How about this? Trump deported a community organizer even though they were born here and never broke the law. Just because they were Hispanic.
Oh my gosh, I'm so emotional about that.
And when you say he was born here...
The world. He was born in this world. Human like the rest of us. Technically.
in Italy. And he wasn't in a gang?
Oh, I get it. When white people do it, it's community organizing. But when a Venezuelan does it, he's in MS-13, technically.
Yeah, seriously.
You've got to be kidding me.
Oh, you just want to blow that off? Well, how's this, you monster? Trump deported an aspiring nuclear physicist whose family had been here since the Mayflower, simply because he got a tan last summer and looked a little brown.
I feel I need to ask for clarity.
Clarity? I think it's clear you're going to hell.
By here since the Mayflower, do you mean he's of Aztec descent?
Technically. He was also technically
Chechnya.
That's so good. Technically. So that's why they're really upset, right? Technically, it was a crime, but we don't like it. So another Wisconsin judge, this one named Monica Isham, is very upset that her colleague, Hannah Dugan, was arrested for, technically violating the law. They're very upset about it. Again, rule of law always matters, right up until it doesn't matter. This Wisconsin judge says she is going to boycott her own courtroom. Good riddance. Nobody cares. Says she will not allow ICE to send illegal aliens or illegal immigrants into quote unquote concentration camps. What in the world are we talking about? So this is where you get when people are actually not doing the way that the law is actually written. They're interested in weighing in on it. They want to have their opinion aggressively, and you can see it by their buddies who are in the mainstream media. This, I think, is an MSNBC clip again. I don't recognize which one this guy is on just from the look of it. But Maze Moore, who's got a great account over on X, put this out. When Trump is arrested versus when a judge is arrested, here's your side-by-side technically coverage.
He is being treated no better or worse than anyone else. This is not selective prosecution, that this is not somebody who's singled out, that he is being treated just like anyone else. That is what it means to have a rule of law. That is what the Justice Department is really signaling and messaging here, is that everyone will be treated, as Merrick Garland has said, as equally in this country. This is really a great day for America. So there has been a violation here that we know for sure, and it is not the judge. Right, exactly. You don't do it. Even if you thought that there was a ground for doing this, the judgment call that you thought that this is the case to bring, it tells you everything.
It's not like we didn't know it was going to be terrible.
They knew it was going to be terrible, didn't they? They just knew it was going to be terrible. Is it a violation of law? Can CNN save us from the abyss of just opining nonsense. Yeah, maybe so. Actually, it turns out that even lefties sometimes have to look and go like, look, dude, technically, if you violate the law, then you might find yourself in handcuffs.
Looking at the complaint, let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say law enforcement shows up at a building with an arrest warrant. They're looking for person A. Person B then says, hey, there's a secret escape door out back. I'm going to show you the way, and then ushers that person out the back door. That is textbook obstruction.
Listen, Andrew Weissman, that's obstruction. Even CNN knows what it is. Although I don't think obstruction is the actual charge they're going to end up doing. There's going to be evidence tampering. There's the possibility that they get hit with like some version of the EUAP statute, which there's not only... So EUAP is the unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. That's you hiding from federal authorities. You can get a felony warrant, even if you're escaping for state level charges. And then there's actually an aiding and abetting statute to that. And I was looking into enforcing that when I was in New Mexico on family members who helped a guy get away who had allegedly raped children. Yeah, that's a big problem. And he got to Mexico, and then his kids were still helping him and sending him money. And we were like, oh, okay, yeah, we could probably go after the kids as well. We could at least, leverage that. There are options to be able to enforce these things. It'd be one thing if this was a completely foreign idea to people on the left, deporting people, that rule of law actually had some mattering and that nobody had ever enforced this before Donald Trump, except technically Barack Obama did too.
Will this administration continue to oversee the deportation of 400,000 people a year?
As long as Congress gives us the money to deport 400,000 people a year, that's what the administration is going to do. That's our obligation under the law. We will be strategic about how we do it. And the number of those folks who are either criminals or recent arrivals will continue to go up. But yes, this is our obligation under the law. And while we have the debate about reforming the law, we must enforce it, and we will do that.
Are you saying that this administration believes that there are 400,000 serious criminals who are not in jail right now and who should be deported? 400,000 people. Where are you going to find them if you're saying that your emphasis is only on serious criminals?
As I pointed out, of the people that we remove, of the 400,000 people removed in the last year, about half of them are serious criminals under the definition in immigration law. And the vast majority of the other half are either recent arrivals, people who are in the process of crossing at the border, or people who have recently been deported or who had previously been deported and are reentering.
Yeah, and so where would you even find these bad criminals? There's a little clip here. This was posted. This is on the White House lawn. The Trump administration is putting up pictures of rapists and murderers who have been arrested and are set up for deportation, all kinds of very serious crimes. There you see them. Homicide, murder, rape, just all awful crap people. Because if they don't agree with the rule of law, you get them all. And where would you find these kinds of people? Where would you find them? I don't know, maybe at a club, maybe at a nightclub. That's something that's been stuck in my head because it comes from 40-year-old virgin. But yeah, that's where you might find them, wouldn't you? Go figure. God forbid. Or maybe you would find people that were breaking our law, married to a member of the military. Again, technically, we're going to get into a couple of fun little headlines here. This seems very emotional indeed. Wife of U.S. Coast Guard member arrested over expired visa after security check in military housing. Okay. Well, that sounds problematic. I mean, they were just sorting out the visa thing, right? That's what you would believe. You'd read this and you would say, okay, this is from, who is this from? This is ABC News. The previous story about Congress members being upset about it comes from Axios. Remember those heroes that just got the award at the White House press secretary dinner. The wife of an active duty Coast Guard guardsman, was arrested earlier this week by federal immigration authorities outside of the family's residential section of the U.S. Naval Air Station Key West after she was flagged in a routine security check. The spouse is not a member of the Coast Guard and was detained by Homeland Security investigations pursuant to a lawful removal order, said a Coast Guard lieutenant commander. The Coast Guard works carefully with HSI and others to enforce federal law, including on immigration. So Coast Guard is one of those rare military units that both has a law enforcement mission, that border protection piece, and additionally has a military piece. They're one of the few, like, people used to actually have like naval helicopters flying. They'd put a Coast Guard sniper up and put it up over the top in California because they had the ability to actually engage kinetically on the law enforcement mission. So you can put law enforcement with military. It's really dangerous, by the way. It's the only group, except maybe we're hearing there may be something like that in the FBI, which is kind of concerning. More on that when we find out more. So you read the story, or you read the headline there. I'm telling you the story. You think, okay, well, this woman, she's just trying to get her paperwork together, you know? This seems pretty mean-spirited to deport an active service member. Again, same as this one here, including members of the military. They're so offended by this idea. Then we get this. According to a U.S. official, the woman's work visa expired around 2017, almost 8 years ago. She was marked for removal a few years later. She had several years to get her stuff together. She and the Coast Guardsman were married earlier this year, said the official who spoke on condition of anonymity. More on the anonymity later on this week. There's another fantastic Freedom Tunes about the anonymous sources during the Trump administration. They're always my favorite. But yes, so when Donald Trump was sworn into office, they realized they better get married in order to keep her here. So technically, she is totally an appropriate target for deportation. Kind of like this, which is another emotional thing. This one coming from NBC. And we're getting close to the end here, folks. U.S. citizen, including a 4-year-old with cancer, was taken to Honduras on mother's deportation flight. Well, the other headline I saw was U.S. citizens being deported, right? Oh my God. Yeah, what if they're 2 years old? What 2-year-old should stay in the United States at the cost of either the U.S. taxpayer or another illegal alien like a husband who has not yet been targeted because you couldn't find the guy? U.S. citizen, including 4-year-old with cancer, taken to Honduras on mother's deportation flight. The siblings were ages 4 and 7, flown out of the United States on their mother's deportation flight before the attorneys could reach them, according to the National Immigration Project. 2 U.S. citizens were sent on their mother's flight. One of the kids has stage 4 cancer, doesn't have access to medication. Apparently, we're all supposed to pay for that, with an illegal alien mom who basically came here and dropped an anchor baby. Does that mean that we don't have compassion for children? No. Do I want children left in the United States for like the U.S. healthcare system to take care of them instead of their mother going back home in Honduras where she belongs? Absolutely not. That's incredibly weird. Attorney Aaron Hebert, who was representing the Willis family, or who Willis said is representing the family. I don't know who Willis is here. Sorry. I skipped down a little ways. They said the speed and brutality and clandestine manner in which the children were deported is beyond unconscionable. No, you took a kid and kept them with their parents. Weren't we hearing screaming about separating kids and parents from the from the first Trump version when they were really upset about kids in cages? What's your alternative? Have a 4-year-old fend for himself on the streets in Philadelphia or something? This is crazy. There's another case of a 2-year-old being represented there. They have multiple instances of small children being deported with their parents. Of course, they're going to get deported with their parents. And that's probably the biggest reason that we should not have this birthright citizenship and why that needs to be settled and fixed. It seems really straightforward to me. I don't get it. Apparently, nobody is against the law, is above the law, except the people that are above the law. It just keeps happening. Again, the Biden administration did it as well. I don't get it. I don't understand how we can be in this world where people are so out to lunch, they don't even understand how parents are supposed to stick around with their kids. And by the way, each one of them eventually found the fathers, and the fathers were like, no, they totally should have stayed in America. Technically, I'm their father, even though I don't actually raise them, don't stay with the mom, and have nothing to do with them. We're going to be using technically a lot, I think, this week. All right, one last little piece. The good news was they caught the purse snatcher of Kristi Noem. Here's another kind of interesting little piece, and I do think this is actually leaning towards the side of justice. This was from Gun Owners of America. I think it came out on Friday. Justice Department confirmed it is not going to appeal the Range v. U.S. decision. Came out of the Third Circuit on a holding that 18 U.S.C. 922 G1 is unconstitutional. Anybody who knows anything about gun law knows that 18 U.S.C. 922 is the prohibited persons. This is the regulations that says what a felon in possession is. All right. So 922 is pretty dangerous in general. I think it is unconstitutional as written. And so did the Third Circuit, interestingly enough. So that actually covers, I think, PA. Let me give you the actual what it covers. It covers Jersey, Delaware, PA, and the Virgin Islands. Interesting enough. That's the Third Circuit. 922 G1 prohibits felons from possessing firearms. What they basically upheld is a previous third court a Third Circuit decision. It's called Bindra versus Attorney General. They had another one that was also in there, United States versus Mazzarella. 2010 was the Supreme Court case. All of these are basically affirming that you don't lose your constitutional liberties simply because you went to prison and came back out. At the end of the day, we need to get consistent about rule of law. We need to be consistent in this country about what is and what is not somebody who's actually paid their debt to society. I actually mean that very, very seriously. I don't like the idea that somebody loses civil liberties because they served a prison sentence. Either you're safe to be able to be among the American people or you're not. And if you're not safe to be here, then you shouldn't be here, period. You shouldn't be here at all. All right. All right, folks, we appreciate you guys being here for the Monday. I do have a palate cleanse for you, which is quite silly, and I think that makes sense as we enter the week because we could have a pretty serious week right now. Again, one-man show. Make sure you are liking the video wherever you're at, supporting our sponsors where you can. You can check out my friends over at Shield Arms if you're looking for something really cool. I'll have some videos to post over on Locals from some shooting I did. Not the best shooting in the world, but my second training session since I've been back in the saddle and finally have like my feet underneath me again in a range I can go to. This is a very goofy video of a woman getting a massive Arctic wolf to howl for the first time live on television. I think this is actually a haunting sound and pretty beautiful. So enjoy the incredible nature of Arctic wolves howling on TV. This looks like cable access or something.
Doing them until we see K9's nose go up in the air. When you see his nose go up in the air, kind of quiet your voice down. We're gonna see if we can hear his beautiful Arctic wolf howl. But Kenai likes to chit-chat a little bit, so he doesn't want to stop there. He wants to howl a couple times back and forth, so we'll keep it going. Are you guys willing? Sure. All right, let's try it out. Here we go.
Yeah. Now, 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 now,
What the hell was that? There's more of it. That is not a real wolf. That is a guy singing. All right, that's how goofy I feel right now. I hope you guys have a fantastic start to your week. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. The chat just caught up. Look at the chat. You guys are like, wait, what the hell was that? All right, join us again tomorrow at 0930. Again, check out our Sunday sit down with Dale Whitaker if you have not done so already. Make sure you're sharing the channel wherever you can. Like it, subscribe, notify yourself. The only notifications that actually go live when we go live, because I check the emails, are over on YouTube. So we appreciate them getting that done. We'll talk more about Rumble maybe a little bit later this week. All right, God bless you. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.